Hey everybody, it's Root Beer. So, about a month or so ago, I decided that I wanted to start doing more YouTube stuff that doesn't revolve around Cardfight Vanguard. So, yeah, I guess I'm doing that now. So, for all two people who follow me on Twitter, you'll probably remember that I used to play Magia Record, the Madoka mobile game, before Aniplex killed it unceremoniously. It's got an anime adaptation in its second season, so I want to talk about it because it's the only way I can easily interact with the story nowadays, thanks Aniplex. So, season 1 of Magia Record was generally considered to be pretty bad. I think Shaft was really limited by having to adapt several hours of nonsense video game plot into a 12 episode anime. The adaptation cut out a lot of the very straightforward exposition from the game that kind of explained what was going on at the plot, and at the same time didn't really add in any extra character moments, so it was kind of the worst of both worlds, where you couldn't turn off your brain and just enjoy the ride, and there weren't any characters that you could get yourself invested in either. So overall, the end result was just not very good. I am happy to report that Season 2 is a million times better in that regard. So we kick off Season 2 by catching up with some old friends. After an entire season of not existing, basically, we finally get to see Homura and Madoka in the side story spin-off of Madoka Magica. Sayaka pops in after her adventures in Kamihama to reveal the twist that magical girls equals witches. And I gotta say, the first half of this episode isn't particularly compelling. A lot of the scenes and dialogue are largely recreated from the original anime, which means we're watching the same characters reacting to the same information in the same way that they did 10 years ago. And while that can make really cool Reddit fodder where people post up screenshots side by side going, "Oh, look at how similar these are," it doesn't make for a particularly compelling experience watching it. However, once the show kind of moves past all of this exposition, things kind of start to pick up again because we focus in more on the characters and kind of the effect that the reveal is having on them. So Madoka and Sayaka are both kind of struggling to cope with everything they've heard. Meanwhile, Homura has kind of gone off on her own because, time travel. She's already kind of seen all this shit. However, the witch from the beginning comes back, and Homura is kind of inspired to go fight it on her own because it's the right thing to do, and it's what Mommy would have done in that situation. Oh, and for the record, if you're watching this and not the anime for some reason, Mommy's not dead or anything, she's just joined the villains at the end of Season 1. So yeah, Homura kind of decides to take charge and start fighting the witch on her own, and an interesting little detail is that she pulls one of Mommy's ribbons out of her shield when she goes to fight the witch. This kind of prompts Madoka to go out to help her, and then, Madoka kind of calls on Sayaka to come and help them as well. And so, in the ensuing fight, the three of them kind of come together to try and overcome both this witch in question, but also the situation as a whole. Madoka kind of says that the three of them have to stick together and work through it. So, Madoka is going to look after Homura, Sayaka will look after Madoka, and then Homura will look after Sayaka. And we have this cute little moment where Homura kind of stops time to protect Sayaka and kind of give her a grief seed so that she can keep fighting. Considering that their relationship in the original anime was always kind of antagonistic, it was just kind of cute seeing them getting along well in this version of the story. And then, on top of this kind of sweet moment where the three of them come together, the animation during the fight is just, it's so good. Like, I don't know if this is just because of the stripped down episode count, but the animation was just so on point throughout the entire fight scene. Everything was really dynamic and fluid. It was just so cool to watch. So after the spectacularly animated fight, we kind of end on a bit of an optimistic note where Homura is kind of like, this timeline is working out way better than anything else so far. Maybe there's a bit of hope there that she can actually save everyone for once. And, just after everything that happened in the original anime, and especially after Rebellion, just seeing Homura being happy and optimistic for once is just really sweet. So, episode 2 picks up with Yachio at the end of season 1, where after Iroha disappears into the void after fighting against Mami, Yachio is just super pissed off. Her frustration at losing Iroha, combined with her sense of survivor's guilt, kind of pushes her to go on this crusade against the Magias, kind of stamping out any rumors that pop up and attacking members to try and get information on where to find their headquarters. And after a whole season where the characters seem largely detached from everything that's happening around them, seeing Yachio just express an emotion over everything that's happening is a much appreciated change. The episode also does a much better job of framing the overall conflict. So in the end, Yachio and Mifuyu end up having another fight, and we learn from Mifuyu that, from her side of things, most of the Magius members are just scared. They couldn't handle the truth of the situation, and they're just trying to cling on to any kind of hope that they can find. And on the other hand, Yachio kinda has a point that the Magius are extremely hypocritical. For all they preach about salvation, they're more than happy to cause suffering for regular people through their Uasa, and also they have an extreme willingness to just attack or brainwash anyone who doesn't agree with them. Add in the fact that doppels themselves are an imperfect solution. At the end of the day, they're still big balls of negative energy that are being projected out of you. If you're not strong enough to control it, your doppel risks taking over, and then you've essentially just created the same problem you're trying to solve. And, suddenly the Magia's plan doesn't look too hot. So yeah, overall, episode 2, real good. Getting proper insight into Yachio's state of mind does wonders for making you care about her as a character. And getting proper context for everyone's motivations means we now have something to build future conflicts on top of. And finally, the animation was still top-notch. Shaft was on some good shit during these first 2 episodes. Episode 3 has us finally reuniting with our main character Iroha via Nightmare Dream sequence. We see Iroha descending from the sky before her doppel bursts out and traps Yachio and Kuro inside of its labyrinth. And yes, Kuro has been here the entire time. I didn't bring it up until now because it honestly wasn't that important. What follows is the aforementioned dream sequence where everyone is reunited in Mikazuki Villa, everyone is all happy and cheerful, witches explode into grief seeds like they're piñatas when they're beaten, and they all go to visit the kids in the hospital where they sing creepy nursery rhymes and Ui is a teddy bear. So yeah, it turns out that everything here is just a labyrinth created by Iroha's doppel because she is not coping very well with the dreadful reveal. And while escaping into an idealized dream world is not the most original plot point ever, it still does a lot to kind of humanize Iroha for the audience. I think Season 1 Iroha was mostly kind of a cardboard cutout. She was so singularly focused on her goal of finding her sister that she didn't really react or emote to anything that was happening, so even just having this dream sequence where all she wants to do is run away and live in a happy, ideal world with all of her friends is, maybe not super original, it still adds something to her character. Just like we saw Yachio being super angry during episode 2, showing that the events of season 1 are having a visible effect on these characters goes a long way towards making us sympathetic to them. So Yachio and Kuro team up to defeat Iroha's doppel, and Yachio and Iroha finally have their tearful reunion, while Kuro sits around totally third-wheeling because, again, she is just not important to the story at all. If I had one major criticism of episodes 2 and 3, it would be just how irrelevant Kuro is throughout everything. It feels like now that Iroha and Yachio are kind of getting a little bit more to them, that Kuro is kind of Iroha player 2, just replacing her as the cardboard cutout that people explain the plot to. I kind of hope they find something else to do with her, otherwise her inclusion into the plot seems wholly unnecessary, considering she's an anime original character and all. But overall, I think they're doing a pretty good job with Season 2 so far. I feel like Part 2 of the story in the game was honestly pretty weak. It was kind of kitchen sink writing where they just throw everything at you all at once, and I really didn't enjoy it, so seems like separating themselves from that and going in a more original direction has been really helping the storytelling. As for other little tidbits, there were also a few things that, as a player of the game, I'm interested in seeing how they'll change. We're going to be talking about game spoilers from now on, so you can just kind of click off now if you're not interested in that. The first thing is that episode 3 ends off with Madoka looking very determined, like she's gonna go enter herself into the main plot, which would be a very nice thing because for some baffling reason in the game, none of the original cast were around when they went to confront Mami. Like, her whole motivation for joining the Magias is that she feels guilty for convincing everyone else to become magical girls, but then, none of them are there when they finally pull her back from the edge. It was so bad, and I hope to God the anime fixes this. Which, it seems like it will. The other really interesting thing is the fact that Nemu is working apart from the other Magias and seems to have some awareness of, Iroha's version of events, because when tasking Kuro to kind of track down Iroha and this one specific rumor of the Eternal Sakura, she refers to Iroha as, her big sister, and the Eternal Sakura itself is pretty significant because if you were paying attention to its rumor, you'll notice it's kind of talking about them, right? It's talking about these 3 girls in the hospital being reunited with this big sister that always went to visit them, so the fact that it exists at all kind of validates Iroha's version of events. And in the games, Nemu was just kind of in the same boat as everyone else, having forgotten about Ui, but having her kind of remember things here and potentially being on Iroha's side could be a really interesting deviation from the games. I really want to see where that one is going. And I think that is it. Thank you for watching, everybody. I've kind of been interested in doing some more stuff outside of Nexus at Night, so I hope you all enjoyed that, and hopefully my next video talking about Magia Record won't come out the day before the next episode. Thank you again for watching, everybody. Bye-bye!